Goldenblood might have been a bastard, but he hasn't always been one. He'd been a teacher, brilliant, intelligent. From the look of the students around him, though, he'd been respected as well. Had it been Littlehorn that changed him? I looked up for a moment, and noticed that 3 more books were on the table in front of me. The owl must have brought them down while I was looking through the first one. Setting Littlehorn aside for now, I pulled the book on the left over. I opened Dancing with Stripes, to a number of grainy black and white pictures of a zebra metropolis, with marble pillars and white temples. In the front of one of the pictures was a unicorn mare in a frilly, fancy dress that was right up with the overmare's mother's alley, standing beside a young colt wearing an explorer's cap. Even as a colt, he seemed a solemn and guarded kid. Sundancer and Goldenblood, read the caption. My eyes moved to the text beside it. From our many adventures in Rome and other zebra lands, we have found this a strange and enchanting place. For most ponies, zebras are hut-dwelling primitives practicing strange shamanistic magic. It is unthinkable that zebras should have cultural and historical accomplishments that rival, even exceed, those of even Ponyville, much less the greater equestrian cities. My son and I have explored the vast, empty savannas, crossed blistering deserts, and explored strange jungles only to be dazzled and amazed by these genial folks in their strange but not unwholesome ways. While ponies can easily separate ourselves into groups of Earth Pony, Unicorn, and Pegasus, zebra affiliation is far more tribal and fragmented into herds and bloodlines stretching back to antiquity. Some, like the Zenkori, wander far and wide collecting lore and stories to bring back to their ancestral lands. Others are far more cerebral and mystic, like the elusive Ashu, who blend hoof fighting with meditation and spiritualistic behavior. The Popori are every bit as urban as the most sophisticated Canterlottian pony, placing great stock on lore and education. Indeed, a traveler can find as much difference between an Atori and Eshtikak zebra as between a Pegasus and a unicorn. While most zebra tribes are friendly, if odd, one must take care to avoid star-touched tribes. The term describes tribes that have dabbled in dark and forbidden magic, or performed horrible crimes. The most infamous, of course, are the Star Cateri, or Eaters of the Stars. Tribes whose dark tales of ritual sacrifice, flaying the skin off still-living prisoners, profane rituals, and other dark deeds have become the stuff of trashy adventure tales back home. Others, like the Carniala, engage in disturbing sexual practices and self-mutilation. These star-touched tribes are shunned by zebra society as a whole, but sadly they are the first thing many ponies latch onto when thinking of our striped neighbors. I flipped to the next page and looked at the pictures of zebras. Some were wearing fancy clothes and dancing on their rear hooves. Another balanced on a pole, upside down. 4 calmly discussing things in a library that looked almost identical to the one I was in, only somehow even bigger. 2 zebra mares struggled in brutal hoof-to-hoof combat. A pair of zebra males stared out with dark eyes from a shadowy doorway, their faces branded with swirling star and other ritualistic stars. Still, there wasn't much I could see about Goldenblood. I sighed and pulled the next book over, as the owl flew down to put away the ones that I'd finished with. This one was about Hoofington Reconstruction, and had a picture of Goldenblood dramatically speaking before a crowd of thousands as blood ran from his mouth. He looked flayed, the scars barely bandaged and stained pink and red. Other photos showed him talking with Rover, who looked really strange without his mechanical limbs. The sole book on the OIA was barely 50 pages long, and sounded like it had been written for children. It didn't tell me anything new. The OIA hub was in Hoofington. It worked to keep the ministries going. No mention of secret projects, no mention of creating monsters or cyber ponies, just that it was the hard-working glue and oil that kept the ministries working together and smoothly, and reported directly to the Princess Luna herself. The damn thing didn't even mention Goldenblood. Oh, wait. There he was. The OIA director resides outside Hoofington, near Black Pony Mountain. Not even mentioned by name. Not every pony else thought I was going crazy. I closed my eyes and leaned back, letting the golden owl take the last book away. I wondered if 2 centuries from now, some pony, or Alacorn if the goddess succeeded in her plans of unity after all, would discover little snippets of my life and wonder, who was this crazy mare and why didn't she just write an autobiography telling every pony about herself? More and more I kept falling, or feeling trapped. Things that happened centuries ago creeping through things I felt now, like I was caught up in a great current and I was helpless to escape it. Heck, I was glad I didn't have to face crushing waterfalls along the way. "Hey, Blackjack?" Little Pip said, making me jump and fall over. I hit my head on the leg of the reading desk and hissed, rubbing my skull. Why hadn't they thought to armor that, huh? The little unicorn looked at me sympathetically. "You okay?" "Didn't expect to find you here." "I'm trying. New things. Thinking. Seems to be all the rage among wandering wasteland heroines these days," I said as she lifted me to my hooves easily. "I heard the stable dweller is a master at it all." I don't know about that," she said with a little flush and smile. "Homage sent me to look for you. Her dinner party's about to start. She doesn't get to entertain much. She wanted to make sure you didn't miss it." I blinked in shock as I looked out the windows. There were only dark purples of twilight left in the sky. How long had... I checked the chronometer. 3 hours looking at books. At this rate, I was going to turn into an egghead. They'd have to start calling me Professor Blackjack or something. "Wow, time flies with a good book," I said with a sheepish smile, shaking myself as we walked together towards the door. "So, you figure out how you're going to deal with your mind-reading nemesis?" "Already did," she said with a little smile. "I've taken out my memories regarding the plan. I don't know. She can't use it against me." "So you don't remember us?" I started as she raised her hoof in alarm. "Don't tell me. My brain's already scrambled enough as it is. I don't want them to have to go in and take the information out all over again." She sighed. I stared at her, thinking about Doc Oct's warnings, about what had happened to Scotch. Would ripping holes in her own memory cause reactions and mistakes? Cause her brain to scramble or drive her crazy? She noticed my look and bowed her head. "The only way to do this, the only way for me to be sure, is if I know there's nothing in there for her to pick out." I looked at her for the longest time. I couldn't imagine her going through what she had, facing what she did, actually sabotaging her own brain to thwart a mind reader. All I did was shoot, get shot at, and have mysteries thrown in my face. I'd never have it as hard as Little Pip did. "Little Pip," I began, but she shook her head, cutting me off. "As is, I'm probably going to have to drop a few more memories behind before I'm sure everything's set," she said with a little sigh and roll of her eyes, as if it wasn't a big deal at all, and the look on her face said that she didn't want me to treat it as if it was. Wow, she might actually have been able to give the stable dweller a run for her money. "So," I asked, "you don't remember anything from our adventure?" "I know it involved me taking a PTM," she said with her eyes falling. "Again?" Oh, I knew that kicking myself look. I was a master of that look. And on my watch, I was going to be the only one of the 2 of us to wear that look. I frowned and stopped. "Listen, I was there. I put a hoof on her shoulder. I know why you took it. You had to. There was no other way. It wasn't because you had an excuse to take them. Okay?" Little Pip brightened a little and nodded. "Thanks." Still, she wasn't quite letting go of the self-kicking. I could see it in her eyes. Well, hell, if I was going to let her do that again. There was only room for one grade-A self-reminiscent in this tower. I chuckled as I stepped closer, and instantly her ears perked up in alarm. "It's too bad, though. I know I'll never forget discovering such a wonderful kisser," I said, giving her flank a nudge with my own as I trot past and out of the door, looking back at the little unicorn and venting whole new shades of red to blush. We arrived at the dinner party. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I was pleasantly surprised to find most of my crew chatting amicably with most of Little Pip's crew. And, since we were arriving late, there was no pony in the way between me and the buffet table. I was feeling positively snacky. I was striding towards it when my ear twitched at the sound of Glory chatting with Calamity. "So, you're absolutely positive you didn't kill off your entire squad on a rampage of death and destruction and flee to the surface to avoid lawful prosecution by the authorities?" she asked as she balanced a cup of punch on her outstretched wing. "Let me think on that," the brown Pegasus drawled as he rolled his eyes back in mock reflection. Nope, afraid not. Said my piece and went on my way, though they weren't like they were keen on making it easy." "I'll say you did," she said with a little frown. "You know, you completely undermined what we were trying to do with Thunderhead with that display." He gave a little shrug. "You Thunderheaders, always with the big ideas and stuff. So long as Navarro's got the guns, not much you can do." "Well, some ponies have to have a big idea," she replied firmly. "Besides, I thought you were all about helping the surface." "I am," he replied, "but sending down some healing supplies and taking some food back ain't gonna be helping. It's flirting. There's no way you're gonna do more than that." "It takes time. You just can't do it all at once." "Sure. Been 200 years. What's another 200 more?" he countered, then saw her ears droop. The brown buck sighed. "And if it were Navarro, they'd probably be 200 years before they sent so much as a spit. I ain't one for their itty-bitty steps." "You sound just like my father," she said. Her expression turned a touch more curious. "Sky Striker." "He's your father?" he blurted, then stared at me, then at Glory's missing wing, then back at me. "Land sakes, he's gonna take your head off when he finds out you broke her." "He already knows," I said with a flush as I trotted away. The two began to talk about the legendary stars, Sky Striker. Anyway, if he wanted to kick my tail, he'd have come down here and get it. No way I'd ever be heading to Thunderhead anytime soon. Moving around, I spotted Scotch Tape seated next to a giant green flaming bird. Given that no pony in the room was alarmed by this, I assumed it was some sort of pet. It seemed the two were locked in a staring contest of sorts. Only from the expression on Scotch's face, she clearly expected to be eaten if she'd lost. The crackling avians seemed to be having quite a bit of fun with the petrified filly. Both of our pip-bucks clicked softly. "Pour Rataway on her," I suggested, drawing a look from Velvet Remedy, away from P-21. "Don't you dare! You'll make her all sickly," Velvet protested. "Oh, we do that just standing here," Homage said as she trotted up and glanced back to where little Pip was taking a drink of her punch. Her eyes locked on all of our rumps. She gasped, choked, and fell over coughing and sputtering. "You are evil," I said in blind admiration, chuckling. Then there was a loud sizzling squawk, and the three of us turned back to see Scotch with a ripped open Rataway pouch in her mouth, and a smoldering, not quite flaming bird, dripping orange fluid. The Ella filly looked at us and then at the glaring avian and pointed a hoof at me. "She told me to do it! It was her idea!" "Not sure you noticed, Scotchy, but my ideas tend to get my rump thumped more often than not." The reigniting bird thing screeched, and the Ella filly dove underneath the buffet table as the animal stalked atop it, glaring down as only the very grumpy bird of prey can do for any sign of the filly emerging.